Dear Heavenly Father, again, we thank you for this day. We understand that for those in this room, maybe faith isn't a tricky thing. Maybe for some in this room it is. But that faith is what you require, and that faith may not be as difficult as we think it is. Please help us today as we study, and maybe come to determination that we can have faith more easily than we think. In your name we pray, amen. So I asked you guys when we started service, how did your week go? And everyone said, hey, it went, right? Another week, another 7 days down, and we're all still here. Probably 90% of the world operates with the idea of tomorrow we'll be here, right? It might not. For some, it really might not. But we have certain faith in that, don't we? It's interesting, the things we're willing to have faith in, isn't it? I had a conversation with a friend of mine recently. And in that conversation, it's funny because I've been talking to his wife, and they're really teetering on maybe we should go to church. And they actually have an outside influence now of someone that all of us know who was not a faith-driven person and has suddenly found his way into a church and is just on fire. And it's really making this friend of mine kind of, really? Because they're so like-minded and such good friends that he didn't see our person who's just found faith heading that direction. So in speaking with his wife, he has certain ideas, some of them very accurate, about what the Bible does and doesn't say. Now, he was raised in what I would describe as at least a Christian household. His knowledge of the Bible is really good for someone who doesn't study. He's a smart person. He's got a good memory. Probably a lot of the things that he learned growing up stuck with him. But I just happened to come across him in Walmart, of all places, just running through the aisles. I was there on duty just kind of doing a patrol check. Every now and then I get bored of looking at the walls of my office, and I drive around and do a business check. So I come across him, and he says, man, I understand it from my wife that you don't necessarily agree with what I'm saying, that you think I'm wrong. I said, hold on a minute. Hold on. I'm not saying that you're wrong. And I'm also not saying that you're foolish. But I did have a rebuttal to some of the things that you had to say because your wife asked me. And that triggered a conversation, right? So we're there in the aisles of Walmart, and we're talking. And he first starts with, well, I really have a problem with the difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament. He said they're just so different. He said in the Old Testament you have all that murder and all that sin and everything that's wrong with the world, but suddenly you get into the New Testament and everything is grand. Everything is great. Everything is love. That was pretty easy to respond to, don't you think? Well, Jesus was murdered. That's in the New Testament. Stephen was murdered. That's in the New Testament. How many of the 12 disciples made it to natural death? Say it again. 1. 1 out of 12. That's not a very high percentage. If you were in baseball, you would not be starting for any of the professional teams. Just saying. So, I then started talking to him about, you understand that the New Testament is almost all the way to the end a completion of the Old Testament, right? That the Old Testament is full of prophecies. And what are prophecies? They're promises, aren't they? They're covenants. They're things that are to come. And the Old Testament shows over and over and over again that God keeps his word, doesn't it? And the reason for that buildup is because what's the ultimate promise? The Messiah, right? That's the ultimate promise that is just pushed through the Old Testament. And we show that God keeps his word so that when we get into Matthew 1, verse 1, and it starts from there, we can see that God has kept his word in the past, and now he is keeping his word now. He is giving us the Messiah. And then what does that set up for Revelation in Daniel? That the prophecies to come will most likely be fulfilled. Correct? So that was an easy topic to approach. Now, the next thing that he had an issue with was the evilness that God permits on record in the Old Testament. I didn't find that difficult to respond to because I believe that sin and evilness is a cause and effect. If you look at it analytically, there is a cause and effect. Sin comes in when there is an absence of what? Love. And who's the source of love? God, right? In the absence of God, sin takes its place. In every circumstance. The minute you take God out of the equation. Now, Julie gave an excellent children's story up here. Now, Cameron, you got a couple little drops on your head, did you not? Of water from your mom's water bag. Follow me here, buddy. So, those drops of water, when God promises to be with us, can we learn from something if God completely protects us and we never feel any ramifications of the things that we do? No. We got to have a little taste of our own repercussions, of the results of our own choices, right? Those drops that fell on you were just a little taste of what the world can throw at you. Now, if that whole bag had gushed out and gotten you completely soaked, you're probably not ready to continue church, to continue your walk with God. Right? It's a great story, and it ties into what we're working on here. But if you look at the stories of the Old Testament and the sin that's there, the specific story he brought up was the story of Lot and his daughters and how they deceived him. He goes, I don't understand. Well, was Lot the best decision maker? Did he have a history of very poor decision making? Did he have a history of poor decision making when he is told not to do something? Do you think that his family saw that? Do you think that his daughters saw that? Do you think they saw the hypocrisy in dear old dad? Absolutely. We see it all the time in law enforcement. We go to a house where a child is unruly and you need to control my kid. You need to scare him straight. Well, I would say that the correction is much more diverse than just telling the child to act right. Because I think do children just have a behavior or do they learn it? They learn it. Now, sometimes they learn it from a lack of discipline, from a lack of authority. They learn they can get away with things, right? It's one of the greatest things we are as humans is we learn how to manipulate very early. A baby can manipulate. What do they do when they're hungry? They cry. I want something. I'm going to cry. Now, when children cry and we give them what they want, it's because we don't want to deal with them, right? There's a cause and effect here, folks. The sins of the Old Testament, the actions in the Old Testament, I think you could easily go back and analyze each specific story and say that it is the result of a sinful nature, of poor decision making, of something that was contrary to the teaching of God. When God wiped out the earth with the flood, was there a cause and effect there? Absolutely there was. When he wiped out Sodom and Gomorrah, was there a cause and effect there? Absolutely there was. When he put Isaac on the altar for Abraham to sacrifice, there's a cause and effect there whether you realize it or not, because there was a lesson there. You see, Isaac was representative of the purity of life and the sacrifice required that was going to be given by God. So there is a cause and effect because it's symbolic. If you look at what it's symbolizing the sin. The sin is causing this to happen. But what happened at the end? God saved him, right? So even though God asked that horrible thing of a father, he was never going to allow it to happen. He was always going to protect him. So this conversation occurred in the aisles of Walmart. We went through all of this. So we're about 15 minutes into this now. And my friend says, well, that makes sense. Like everything I said was jiving with him. He's like, yeah, I get that. I'm going to go look into that. And he will, because he wants to know the answer. That's the kind of person he is. If you tell him something that he doesn't know about, that he's not read up on, he doesn't want to be the one who's caught with the lack of knowledge. So he's going to go and read that. He's going to go try and find that. So he's going to go back and read that story of Lot, and he's going to go, oh, okay, that does make sense. Tim was driving something there that definitely makes sense. But his last point that we covered was faith. And what he said is he has a hard time with faith, just blindly giving faith to something. Is anyone here a converted Christian who wasn't a Christian early in life, who wasn't raised in church? Mary? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but when you decided to have faith, was that an easy process for you? No? Difficult? Did it take time? It did take time. And what was it you found difficult about faith? I think you're going to tell me what I want to hear. So she says she had a hard time with her growing up in the way things were in her household of just thinking things would be okay. She had a rough upbringing. So when someone has a lifestyle like that, you become an adult. Do you decide that you're going to be different? That you're going to control the things you can control and make sure that doesn't happen in your household? Control is an interesting word, isn't it? Because my theory here, my proposition here is that an unwillingness to have faith in God is about control. Because the reality is that to have faith in God, you have to give up control. You have to give up self. You absolutely have to go, you know what? I can't handle this. I don't have the power. I need someone else to step in and take control. And do we as humans give up control very easily? Do we? Are there some cases that we do? How many members of Congress are there? Just over 900. We allow 900 people to control the laws of what the millions in this country do. And we do it with faith. They're going to do the right thing. That's interesting. So is faith really that difficult of a thing to possess, or is it control? Faith isn't difficult to possess. It's giving up the control. And so what I proposed to my friend is, and I know him well enough to say this, I said, I think you have a control issue. We as police officers spend our whole life controlling the intangibles, right? We go into the chaos not knowing what's happening, and we go, we're going to control this. We're going to manage this, we're going to handle this, and we're going to leave everybody walking out of here with this being resolved. Even if there's things still left that are unknown, we're going to fix it. We are control freaks. You show up on a scene, the first thing they teach you in the use of force continuum is your presence in your uniform. Simply showing up is authority. It is control. And then the next use of force, the next part of your authority is your voice. I got to tell you, folks, sometimes when I yell, I sound like a girl. My octave goes up. So I got to focus and yell with this voice. We're not doing this. But it's about control. And faith isn't hard to have, but we have a hard time giving up control to something we can't see or understand, right? We're willing to give control and faith in something we can see, something we could even hold accountable, because we still have control of that. When a politician fails us, we get to hold them accountable. We can traipse them in front of a Senate hearing. We can set up an election that makes sure that give them a good competition to make sure they don't win again, right? Even though we give up control, we still have some control there. So we haven't given up completely. And he said, I kind of get that. I do believe that I'm someone who doesn't give up control easily. So I propose that he's not unlike a lot of people today, that we have an innate desire to control things in our world. We're praised when we have things together, but what if someone's midlife and falling apart? Society is not too favorable, is it? It's tough, right? When you see someone falling apart and you have the solution and you're going, you need boom, 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 and they go, I agree, but I'm just not going to do it. And then we go, man, they're just falling apart. I'm done with them. And those are your friends and family. And then we go into society in general. When we deal with someone in mental crisis, we have very few resources for those folks. Very few. It just doesn't exist for us. We're working on it on the Eastern Shore, but we don't have the resources of the Western Shore. We don't send social workers out with our police force. There's certainly a topic to debate of the usefulness of that. So is having faith really that difficult? So what are other things that we have faith in this world that isn't religious? And I said this to Jason. I said, when you go out, when you leave this building, you're going to get in your car, you're going to drive. And you're going to have faith that the majority of the drivers on the road are going to follow the rules of the road, and that way everyone gets to go in the same direction, they drive in the right lane, and nobody gets hurt. You have faith in people you don't even know. That's interesting. What about walking right here in Walmart? You have faith in these folks that are walking to Walmart that they're going to act under the rules of society. Not just the rules in the traffic article. They're not going to cut in line, are they? No. Society has rules. They're going to walk to the right. Anyone ever walk down Walmart and someone's coming right at you and you're like, they're going to move, they're going to move? They are not going to move. Right? Anyone love when you go into Walmart and you have the shoppers now, the Walmart shoppers, the ones, because some people order their groceries and have them delivered to their car. But what that creates for those of us who want to go in the store, a little bit of chaos. Because those shoppers, they do not care about the shoppers in the store. They're on a time schedule. Got to have this out the door in 15 minutes. And they have just about run over me and cut in front of me to get the item in front of me on the shelf. There's rules of society not being followed. And you go, whoa, wait a minute. It's not right. So we appreciate that people are going to have certain social orders. We have faith in that. Anyone ever been in an airplane? Anyone have anxiety from that? Right up until you feel that plane go, and that thing feels like it's like this, right? Like we are going straight up. Somehow I signed up for an astronaut program I did not want to be in. But when the plane goes, and the seatbelt light goes off, and they say you're free to move about the cabin, you had faith, a little bit of fear, but you got in that seat and you buckled in and you said, all right, I'm going to trust in the pilot. I'm going to trust in the plane. I'm going to trust in the minimum wage people who did the maintenance on this thing. That's interesting that we have faith in that. What about just your car starting? We think that if we put the right oil in it, keep gas in it, make sure the battery's good, it's going to start every time, right? Anyone ever done that and gone out to your car and it didn't start? Heartbreaking, isn't it? Then you just stare at it and go, I don't know what's wrong with it. It's got everything, and it's not working. So what do? Take it to a mechanic, call a mechanic, have faith that someone else can figure it out? Interesting. Now I'm going to tell you about something else that this is personal for me. So what I have in my pocket are one of these pockets. Hold on. Baseball cards. I'm a baseball card collector. Now most of my collection is a result of me collecting much younger, like decades ago. But some of the cool stuff you get, like this is a card that has a swatch, a small little cutout of a player's pants and a player's jersey that were used in a game. And the players are Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris. Roger Maris was the home run king, most home runs in a season. And arguably still is, because there's a lot of asterisks next to the names that have beat his record. They believe there's steroid use and stuff. So that's a pretty cool thing to have, isn't it? This card's worth a couple $100. That's really cool. On the back it reads, "You have received a game-used pants jersey card from the Upper Deck Company. The front of the card is authentic. It's an authentic piece of pants worn by Mickey Mantle in an official Yankees MLB game, and an authentic piece of jersey worn by Roger Maris in an official Yankees MLB game. We hope that you enjoy these pieces of Major League history. The Upper Deck Company continues to keep you as close as it can get, as close as you can get to the game." Upper Deck no longer makes baseball cards. They lost a contract. Within the hobby collection, it was rumored that they lost a contract because when they said game used, they meant worn by the player at some point. Now, there's a high likelihood that these are legitimate because players didn't wear their uniforms for photo ops. You had to go to the game to get the photos of the players, and they only wore the jerseys for the game. But the modern players, they'll put on a jersey, take it off, and it goes in the box. They wore it for 2 seconds. It's not game used. It's just player worn. Upper Deck lost the contract. Now, I'm having faith in a company of people I've never met that this card is legitimate. Now, there are certain companies in baseball, card-making companies, that are known for it. Whether you collect cards or not, I'll tell you. Fleer, Donruss, Upper Deck, Topps. Okay? So, of those companies, I don't think Fleer's in business anymore. Donruss was bought out and is owned by Panini now. So Topps is the only one left running the game. Now I have a second card here. This is Frank Thomas. It's autographed by Frank Thomas. I love Orioles. Frank Thomas was an Oriole. Frank Thomas was a really good player. But what I want to point out to you is that this limited edition autographed trading card of Frank Robinson, which is certified that this limited edition trading card contains the authentic original signature of Frank Robinson, is certified by the Nabisco Company. I pulled it out of a box of Triscuits. It's a pretty lucky find. I've never met anyone from Nabisco. I like Triscuits. But I'm having faith in the fact that someone at that company watched that signature or authenticated what it is, and that's what makes that valuable. I have an autographed baseball bat at home of Brooks Robinson that comes with a piece of paper that says his signature is legit. But I'm having faith in that. See, we have faith in things of the world all the time. What about the things that are intangibles that we can't prove? We talked about the rules of the road. We can always kind of hold people to that level of accountability, right? If they don't follow the rules of the road, a cop pulls them over, they get a ticket, right? They have a traffic accident, investigation's done, and we render fault, right? What about the cycle of nature? Somehow we trust that spring, summer, fall, and winter are going to occur every year, right? We have a hurricane season, we know when it is. We have a tornado season, we know when that is. We trust the cycles of nature, something we cannot see, cannot control, and we cannot predict, but we have faith in it. something a little bit more tangible, your mortgage company. Anyone here have a mortgage? Lots of mortgages out there. You ever met anyone from your mortgage company? No. No, probably not. They probably weren't even there when you signed the papers. It was probably a title signing officer, right? But you have faith that that mortgage company, when you're done paying your mortgage, is going to send you a what? A deed in the mail. It says it's free and clear and you own it. You have faith that the post office is going to deliver it. The post office? Anyone ever lost anything from the post office? Just 2 weeks ago, I was expecting a delivery. I had to put a Facebook post out to my neighbors going, hey, this says it was delivered, and that is not a picture of my porch. That was FedEx, not the post office. I found it. My neighbors down the road said, that's our porch, and I was able to go get it. So we've talked about the things that we have faith in. Bitcoin, oh my goodness. I feel so sorry for the folks when Bitcoin crashes because they think it's the next big money maker. A lot of people making money off it right now, but it's not backed up by anything. There's no gold backing it, no silver backing it. When someone decides Bitcoin is over, the money is untraceable and it's gone. Someone walks away with billions, if not trillions. I believe that's going to happen. Stock market, all things we put faith in that we really have no control over. So do we really have control over any of these things? So I'm getting a little long-winded on it, but I'm just making my point that in society we have faith in certain things. Let's look at the dictionary to tell us what faith is. This is fun. I love this. The first definition of faith is complete trust or confidence in someone or something. If you have complete trust or confidence in someone or something, is it reasonable to believe that they have proven and earned your trust and confidence? It was tangible, was it not? Absolutely it was. The second definition is strong belief in the doctrines of a religion based on spiritual conviction rather than proof. That's contradictory to me. Because society's acceptance and definition of faith is that someone has proven their ability to you. An item has proven its functionality to you, and you have justification for your faith in it. But yet, when we talk about religion, it's without proof. That's a little disappointing to read. So let's talk about faith in the Bible. If you want to turn with me, you can. We're going to turn to Judges chapter 6. We're going to work in Judges, and we're going to go a little bit into Matthew. So Judges chapter 6, we're talking about Gideon here. We're going to go through this real quick. So the Israelites at this point, they were failing God again. He sent another prophet, or he gave someone else the ability, or declared someone else a prophet, and that was Gideon. So if we start down in verse 11, just before verse 11, it says, "But you have not listened to me. The angel of the Lord came and sat down under the oak of Ophrah." That belonged to Joash, the Abizrite, where his son Gideon was threshing wheat in a winepress to keep it from the Midianites. When the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." It's interesting. We're going to find out later that the people in this area weren't devout God followers because they had altars to other gods. So Gideon's knowledge of God and association with God is just like us, right? We know who he is. We've read, he knows the Bible up to Judges. He knows the history that God has given. But there's also outside influences, right? And he probably has a little bit of that in his life. He says, "But sir, if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? Where are all his wonders that our fathers told us about when they said, did not the Lord bring us up out of Egypt? But now the Lord has abandoned us and put us into the hand of Midian." So he kind of calls God out a little bit there, right? He says, if you're really God, where has he been? The Lord turned to him and said, "Go in the strength you have and save Israel out of Midian's hand. Am I not sending you?" So his response was, we are now in the hands of the Midians, and God says, well, then just go get out of the hands of the Midian. I'm with you. It was that simple, right? "But Lord," Gideon said, "how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in the Manasseh, and I am the least in my family." The Lord answered, "I will be with you, and you will strike down all the Midianites together." Gideon replied, If now I have found favor in your eyes, give me a sign that is real, that is really you talking to me. Please, do not go away until I come back and bring my offering and set it before you. And the Lord said, I will wait until you return. So Gideon goes, he gets an offering, he prepares it, and he comes back. The angel of God said to him, take the meat and the unleavened bread, place them on this rock, and pour out the broth. And Gideon did so. With the tip of the staff that was in his hand, the angel of the Lord touched the meat and the unleavened bread. Fire flared from the rock, consuming the meat and the bread, and the angel of the Lord disappeared. That's number one. Number one, Gideon did not have faith. He asked God to prove himself, and number one time, God proves himself to Gideon, okay? When Gideon realized that it was the angel of the Lord, he exclaimed, sovereign Lord, I have seen the angel of the Lord face to face. But the Lord said to him, peace. Do not be afraid. You are not going to die. So Gideon built an altar to the Lord there and called it, the Lord is peace. To this day it stands in Ophrah of the Abizrites. That same night the Lord said to him, take the second bull from your father's herd, the one 7 years old, tear down your father's altar to Baal, and cut down the Asherah pole. So the Asherah pole is an interesting element. Does anyone know what that is? It's a pagan symbol. It basically was meant to, from what I read, it was put next to the altar of Baal, and later it was put next to references of God to basically say that God has a partner. It was a way of combining the people of God and the pagan faith. It was a compromise. So where was I? So take down the pole beside it. Then build a proper kind of altar to the Lord your God on the top of the height. Use the wood of the Asherah pole. So not only am I telling you to cut it down, but you're going to use that pole, and it's going to be your firewood for your declaration of faith to me. Cut it down, offer the second bull as a burnt offering. So Gideon took 10 of his servants and did as the Lord told him, but because he was afraid of his family and the men of the town, he did it at night rather than in the daytime. So we're going to skip a little bit here. The people in the village come out, they see the altar torn down, they get mad, they want Gideon's life. His father comes out and says, why don't you let your God, why don't you let Baal fight his own fights? And they backed off. So then we come down to verse 36. Now, we've seen that just above that, and starting in verse 44, all the people of the land come out and start getting ready for this battle. They see it happening, so they start preparing. They bring out their troops, and they start camping. Gideon said to God, if you will save Israel by my hand, as you have promised, look, I will place wool fleece on the threshing floor. If there is dew only on the fleece and all the ground is dry, then I will know that you will save Israel by my hand, as you said. So now here's number 2 of Gideon, go and prove yourself to me. So is Gideon acting in faith? No, he isn't. Is God still using him? Yes, he is. And that is what happened. So Gideon rose early the next day. He squeezed the fleece and wrung out the dew, a bowl full of water, but the ground around it was dry. That's pretty amazing. Would anyone else be amazed by that? I would, especially if you asked for that specific act to be done and it was fulfilled. But is Gideon convinced? No. Then Gideon said to God, do not be angry with me. Let me make just one more request. Allow me one more test with the fleece. This time make the fleece dry and the ground cover it with dew. That night God did so, only the fleece was dry, all the ground was covered with dew. So now here's number 3 of Gideon going, I'm not convinced. Convince me. Convince me. Now Gideon, up until this point, he probably displayed faith. He's an older person. He's a warrior. As God said, God declared him a warrior. So you got to have faith in the people around you. They're going to have your back in a time of battle. You have to have faith that food's going to be there in the morning, that you're going to be able to go out and hunt or whatever, that your livestock's not going to die as long as you take care of it. He had an awful lot of faith in things that weren't God-related, right? But he didn't have faith in God. So then we go to chapter 7. Early in the morning, Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, so Gideon ended up with a new name after he destroyed the Baal altar. And all of his men camped at the spring of Herod. The camp of Midian was north of them in the valley. in the valley near the hill of Moreh. Then the Lord said to Gideon, you have too many men for me to deliver Midian into their hands, in order that Israel may not boast against me, that her own strength has saved her. Announce now to the people, anyone who trembles with fear may turn back and leave Mount Gilead. So a couple of things happen here. I'm not going to keep reading that part because I'm going to try and speed through this. God tells him, you got too many people. Go tell your people, anyone who's afraid can head back home. So they head back home. Then God again tells Gideon, what? Too many people. Take them down to the river. Let them drink. The ones who bend their head to the water and don't take in their surroundings as they do so, send them packing. We only want the ones who are drinking, bringing their hand to their mouth and looking around. Because those are fighters, right? They know what's about to happen. They want to be in it. How many does he end up with? 300. To take on 3 different groups of people who have now camped ready for battle. So God has kind of asked Gideon to prove his faith now, right? So Gideon's done what God asked, but he still hasn't jumped into the battle. So we go a little bit further down in chapter 7. We're going to look at we'll start with verse 8. So Gideon sent the rest of the Israelites to their tents, but kept the 300 who took over the provisions and trumpets of the others. So now they took on all the equipment of everybody else. They're carrying all the stuff. Now the camp of Midian lay below them. During the night, the Lord said to Gideon, get up, go down against the camp, because I am going to give it in your hands. If you are afraid to attack, go down to the camp with your servant Purah and listen to what they are saying. Afterwards, you will be encouraged to attack the camp. So Gideon did just that. He and Purah went down to the outpost of the camp. The Midianites, the Amalekites, and all the other eastern people had settled in the valley, thick as locusts. Can 300 people beat that crowd? Nope. Their camels could no more be counted than the sand on the seashore. You get it? The entire valley ready for battle. Gideon arrived just as a man was telling a friend his dream. I had a dream. He was saying, a round loaf of barley bread came tumbling into the Midianite camp. It struck the tent with such force that the tent overturned and collapsed. His friend responded, this can be nothing other than the sword of Gideon, son of Joash, the Israelite. God has given the Midianites and the whole camp into his hands. When Gideon heard the dream and its interpretation, he worshipped God. He returned to the camp of Israel and called out, get up, the Lord has given the Midianite camp into our hands. There's a couple of points here. One is Gideon still had doubt, right? He did not have faith. He wasn't willing to act in faith. Whose faith did he finally act in? Go ahead, Jim. I'm gonna trick it up a little bit here. I am. Because I think the Midianite who said they're going to take us out, they only knew of the Israelites. They had not seen the works of God in their hands, but they knew, or on their behalf, but they knew the stories. And based on a dream, the one guy says, man, they're about to wipe us out. Like a loaf of bread rolling through a tent. Which seems kind of weird. But someone who is not following God, who is on the opposite side, who is the enemy, is the one that displays the faith in the God of the enemy enough to know that they're about to be beat. And that is what finally motivates Gideon to go, we got this. They're scared of us. It wasn't God saying, I've got your back. It was someone else saying, God has his back. That's extremely interesting to me. So God gives Gideon one last push. When he overhears the words of the city citizens, the camp citizens, he feels empowered to attack. So here's a question for you. If you're feeling weak, can you sometimes lean on someone else's faith to drive you through? Sure you can. That's why we're told to commune amongst other Christians. That's why we're here in this building. Because when we are weak, we lift each other up, right? We're not meant to be a solo fighter. So there's a scene in the movie, Evan Almighty. Has anyone seen that? So in this movie, Steve Carell's the main character. God comes to him and says, I want you to build an ark. It's modern day. And he starts building an ark, and he gets an instant beard, starts looking like Noah. And his wife's watching all this and going, this is crazy. But the one thing she wants is for her family to come together. They're not a family. It's really stressing her out. So about 2/3 of the way through the movie, she goes to this diner, and she's sitting there with her thoughts, and the waiter comes over and talks to her, says, are you okay? The waiter is Morgan Freeman. And what we quickly figure out is Morgan Freeman is playing the character of God. And he says, you seem stressed, something seems to be bothering you. But she ends up saying, my husband says God is telling him to do this, and what do you say to that? This was Morgan Freeman's response, the character of God. He said, if someone prays for patience, does God give them patience, or does he give them the opportunity to be patient? If they pray for courage, does God grant them courage, or does he give them moments in which they need to be courageous? And then he hits her in the feels. He says, if someone prays to God for their family to come together, does God put them together, or does he give them the opportunity to love one another? You see, all the times we think that we can't act in faith because God's not giving us what we want, he's usually giving us the opportunity to take what we want, to achieve what we want, but we're not seizing it. God was creating the opportunity for Gideon to have faith in God, was he not? He was building him up, creating the opportunity. Gideon had no control of the elements of the battle, not the troops. God sent most of them away, and yet the army was amassing against him. Not the battlefield, because the valley was full. They were going to fight wherever the fight was. He had no control over any of that. He had no control over the numbers that were against him. Control is a myth. None of us have control over anything other than what we believe and how we behave. It's a lesson I've often taught my children as they were growing up, that the only thing we can control is ourselves and how we respond to the world. That's the only thing within our control. So let's talk about the thief on the cross for a minute. It's interesting. In Matthew, let me find the text. I'm so sorry about this. In Matthew, we have a moment here where the thief is on the cross. The first one, how did he respond to the cross? To being on the cross and God being there? How did the first thief respond? Do you remember? He wasn't nice, was he? He wasn't kind at all. Into Matthew, maybe I'm trying to be in Mark. I had it looked up yesterday, and now I'm failing you folks. I'm so sorry. Okay, we're going to go to Luke. I'm sorry. Luke chapter 23, verse 32. Okay, we're going to go over this really quickly. 2 other men, both criminals, were also led out with him to be executed. When they came to the place called the Skull, there they crucified him, along with the criminals, one on his right and the other on his left. Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. And they divided up his clothing by casting lots. The people stood watching, and the rulers even sneered at him. They said, he saved others, let him save himself, if he is the Christ of God, the chosen one. The soldiers also came up and mocked him. They offered him wine and vinegar and said, if you are the king of the Jews, save yourself. There was a written notice above him which read, this is the king of the Jews. One of the criminals who hung there hurled insults at him. Aren't you Christ? Save yourself and us. But the other criminal rebuked him. Don't you fear God, he said, since you are under the same sentence? We are punished justly, for we are getting what our deeds deserve, but this man has done nothing wrong. Then he said to Jesus, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And Jesus answered him, I tell you the truth today, you will be with me in paradise. The reason I bring that up is this a display of faith? Absolutely it is. So the thief on the cross had most likely only heard of Jesus and his works until he saw him hanging on the cross. Is that the image you would have in your mind of your Savior? Think about this. You've been part of a people and a nation told for years that the Messiah was going to come and lift you to the heavens, exalt you over all of the people on the earth. Is the image you're going to have this dude sitting beaten and broken on a cross next to you, barely saying a word, meek and humble, asking forgiveness for the people who are hurting him? Is that your idea of what they thought the Messiah was going to be? Not at all. Would it instill confidence that things were about to work out for you? No. So why did he choose to believe? I think if you look in the Bible, as far as stories of faith, this is arguably, probably one of the most profound statements made in the Bible. It's a statement of faith that in a very brief exchange, the most amazing thing possible happens. The thief took control of the one thing he actually controls, didn't he? He gave up the world. Nothing else mattered but the fact that he felt the Messiah was next to him, dying, just like him. He gave up control. The one thing we're all supposed to do in faith. He gives up control of everything else. We know this because of his request. What does he say? He says, remember me when you come into your kingdom. He didn't say, remember me now, did he? He didn't say, save me now. No. He asked for Jesus to remember him when Jesus is well beyond this world, when he is in heaven. You had to give up quite a bit of control to hope for that kind of redemption, don't you? When Jesus is beyond this world, that is something only God could have control of. And only a momentary exchange, the thief solidified his eternity by stepping out in faith. That's all it takes is a moment, isn't it? So what did he have left to lose? He's already there to die. What's there left? You have nothing tangible. The only thing you have left is the intangible, is the chance, the hope, because faith begins with hope, does it not? Eternity, completely intangible, but so valuable is what he put his hope in. We have nothing left to lose, folks. I'm closing up here. I'm in my last two paragraphs. You've done well. Our homes don't matter. They can be taken from us, can't they? It's happened before in history. Our money doesn't matter. Anyone remember the stories of the stock market fracture back in the, was it late 20s, early 30s? People were jumping out of buildings because they'd lost everything. We've had many, many ups and downs in the stock market in the last 3 decades, have we not? Enron almost collapsed the market again. Even my baseball card collection, if I locked it in a safe, is it protected and completely there for me at all times? Does it even, I mean, I have it because in my mind, it has some value to it. It's a piece of cardboard. What happens if the world of baseball collapses and nobody wants baseball cards anymore? I got some things I can stick in the spokes of my bike and make motorcycle sounds. Right? That's what my father always told me. He had no idea how many Mickey Mantles met their end at the expense of a sound effect. The only thing any of us have left to lose is our eternity, which is absolutely everything. The intangible opportunity of life forever in a place none of us has ever been, yet with hope, or some form of it, we want it. Why not put faith in the intangible for the chance of obtaining the unobtainable? Why not why not give up control, if like the thief, for only a moment, and ask God to reveal himself like Gideon? I'll turn to one last text, Matthew 7, verse 7. Matthew 7:7 reads, "Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives, he who seeks finds, and to him who knocks, the door will be open." Folks, all God's asking for is a little bit of faith. We have faith in all the things of the world that really make no sense. So why not, for a moment, we put faith into God, even if we feel like we can't see him, if we can't see the proof of his work. I think it's out there if you open your eyes. But why not take the chance? We're playing with eternity here. The purpose of this sermon today, I'm closing out with telling you what my purpose was to give you a different perspective. I've talked about faith before. I've talked about some of these same things before. But I think that we need to keep attacking perspective. I think the world looks at God through so many different lenses that we need to know what those lenses, what the view is through those lenses. And we need to be able to respond to people like my friend in Walmart, not in a greater than now approach, not in a judgmental approach. But if they're genuinely asking questions, if they're genuinely seeking, we need to understand the lens through which they're glancing, and we need to be ready to give them some direction. We're not required to give answers. We're required to give direction, to plant seeds. So my hope is that for those watching, if you are questioning your faith, think about what you're willing to put your faith into and really how unreliable it is. If you are already someone of faith, take it as another perspective of how you can affect those who are struggling with their faith. And let's go out there. Let's put one more person in the pews of this church. Let's put one more person in any of God's churches. Just by the way that we show them faith and we show them how they can give up on the things of the world and simply rest on God's willingness to work for us. Let's close with our final hymn, hymn number 529. I thank you for your time. Dear Father in heaven, we thank you so much for the faith and hope that you have in us. We pray that as we face the world, as we face the trials that are in front of us, in those moments where our faith is questioned by ourselves and by others, that we remember who you are, how resolute and how willing you are to keep your word to us, and that we lean on that when we're struggling the most so that our faith continues. Please instill in us the fortitude that we need to continue our faith. Please give us opportunities to be faithful. Please test us. Please help us to go out to the world, and when others are tested, to identify that test and help them so that they might, even if by chance, lean on our faith in their roughest moment. In your name we pray. Amen.